parents and the children could have fun together.
Please board quickly and safely. Our monorail will be departing momentarily.
Welcome to the My DVC Points podcast. Join the conversation as DVC members share their stories, personal preferences, and magical memories. Your reservation is confirmed, your fast passes are booked. Pull up on the yellow strap because our journey into the magic of membership is about to begin.
To infinity and beyond.
Now, here's your host and curator of magical stories, Chad Pennycuff.
Welcome home, neighbors, to episode 266 of the My DVC Points podcast. In today's episode, we are talking about Right of First Refusal, what the Rover Monster did last month, listings that are on the market, and some new Starting with Magic program from DVC Resale Market. So in order to help me cover this month's, market recap report, we're going to welcome Linda Smit back to the show. Linda, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you doing today? It's good to see you. Good to be back.
I'm a little tired from all my travels. I just got back from the new villas at Disneyland Hotel and doing some, experiencing out there on opening weekend. So I'm a little tired this week because it's been a lot of travel the last couple months. But I'm glad to be back home and in the studio and creating content again and, kind of getting the news out here on what's going on in the DVC resale market, Linda.
Fantastic. Looking forward to talking about that.
Yep, this is our normal monthly update show, and every month we go over Disney's Right of First Refusal, which if I go to sell my contract to you, the member of the audience who's listening, Linda would write up our deal, and then she has to submit that to Disney, and Disney has the right to step in as the buyer, right? And then that means you can no longer buy that, but they're going to buy it from me at whatever price you agreed to pay. And that's
exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's called Right of First Refusal. And in 2023, it's been pretty quiet, but we've had one more contract bought back last month.
It's amazing. I mean, we talk about the Rover Monster, we talk about the bear still sleeping, and, we had a couple of contracts bought back, Grand Floridian a couple, and then Animal Kingdom. So it's still very, very slow. Buyer confidence still very, very high. And, Chad, it's interesting. A lot of times I get the question from my buyers, Linda, how long is it going to take before I know? How long am I going to have to lie awake at night and lose my sleep? Well, interesting enough, I had a wonderful member of mine that I sold that called me last week and said, I just can't tell you how excited I am. We got through Rover in 9 days.
Wow, that's pretty fast.
That's the fastest I've had in a long, long time. So I don't want to get everybody thinking it's going to be that. But, when they don't buy back, they're pushing files around, right? So I've always thought it's about an average about a little over 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, not been 30 days. I haven't had somebody in 30 days, Chad, in a long time. So I think, when you look at this chart and you see of all the contracts, we put 61% of the business through.
Thousands this year, right? Like we're probably north of 3,000 deals by now this year or four.
More than that, because last December, I want to say we were heading into upwards of 4,500 plus. I think we ended the year close to about 5,000. So when you think of all that business, there's a lot of happy buyers out there.
Yeah. And only 8 people here got the ugly news. And last month it was a Grand Floridian again. We had one bought back in August. We had one bought back in September, which is an odd thing because they're trying to close out the resort. So it's like, why are you guys buying it back if you're trying to get rid of it? But I don't follow that logic, Linda.
It's kind of funny because they have a budget for the year, Chad, and their budget gets refilled. The bank fills up again come October. That's their fiscal year, October through September. So you wonder, did they have a little bit of money left over and they decided to go window shopping and grab a couple? Because one thing about Disney is your individual department budgets. If you don't spend your money, you may not get that much next year. So I'm thinking maybe they had a little bit of pocket change and that's where they went.
Yeah, could be. But to your point, we're now in October, brand new fiscal year, brand new budgets are kicking in. Yep. So I would not be shocked if the Rover Monster doesn't wake up and start buying some stuff again. Because I think now he's got some cash in his pockets and he might be willing to spend it. But we don't know. I think
you could be right.
It's all speculation at this point in time.
We can only hope for the buyer's not, but I get this funny feeling because, we've talked before, Disney has to have a drop product. The drop product would be things like Saratoga, things like Animal. Well, any of the ones that are resale could be their drop product, more so the sold outs than anything else. So you and I will have to wait and see what they do.
Yeah, we certainly will. But we can move over here to average sales prices for the month of September. And huge shout out of thanks to our buddy Paul Krieger over there who puts out this report or has been the one updating it, because we've been creating this for years. I mean, we've been going over this report. As I look through this, Linda, I just scan through this list. And to me, I see like a couple of dollars variation here and there. That's kind of normal ebb and flow to me. And to me, it looks like September was a very steady and stable month for resale prices. It's kind of like the COVID drop down or the recovery from COVID, where we ran prices up during COVID. I think we've pretty well stabled and leveled out looking at the last 4 or 5 months here.
I would agree. It's kind of like floating in a canoe on a calm riverbank. You're not going to get a lot of waves there. One thing that's interesting, though, because a lot of times people will call and say, well, what if the market just crashes again and maybe I should wait? Well, go back about 5 or 6 months. Look at January. Look at February of last year. We're lower than that. So I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't think you're going to see another big, big dip at the end of the fall going into winter like we had last year. I think what you're seeing here is some golden opportunities. And some to point out that I think is, when did you ever see a monorail resort like Bay Lake Tower drop $30-some per point from
172 over here, 141 over here? That's
it's in my tenure at Disney and here as well, I always tell people, if you're unsure and the affordability's there, it's even more so now. Get some monorail points in your portfolio. They're going to hold their value. They all have long deeds, and that's important. And they have lower dues.
Yeah. I mean, even if you bought last year, that's still not that bad, because you've gotten a year or two of points of utilization out of this. So,
oh yeah, you want people to be happy. They're taking vacations. They're not sitting at home and letting these points go to waste. But
in a normal world, like if you think of it like a used car, you've put more miles on the car. Its life has gone down. Well, these contracts all have a 50-year span. So in a normal world, you would think they would naturally just decline down over time. And pixie dust changes all of that with DVC. And we do not see that happening here. It is the weirdest thing that Disney just keeps raising the prices, even though these contracts have a year left, 1 year less of points on them. And the value stays or goes up. So it's really kind of weird to me, Linda.
It is kind of weird when you think about it from the direct side as well as this side, though. You kind of sell on the break even, is that you have all those gravy years left over after you do break even. And that break even would be, how many trips would you had to have taken on cash before you bought a DVC membership anyway? The great thing about resale is you can break even faster because the prices are so much lower. But to Disney's advantage too, that when you're looking at these really long deeds, there's an awful lot of years left over where you're traveling gravy years on the cost of your dues to pay for the villa. Always sold it that way. It's always a successful, economical way to look at it. It's just who can break even faster.
Yeah. Well, my favorite way of looking at this is, I bought a ton of points resale when I was a brand new member, rode them out for 5 or 6 years. The price went up. I dumped it. And there you went. And I pretty much got my dues paid for those 5 or 6 years. So it was literally the opportunity cost of owning it for that. That was been my experience, because I'm looking at it like, I'm going to buy low at resale, ride this out for as long as it makes sense for my family, and do not believe that marketing hype that this is the vacation you'll never outgrow. I now have a 17-year-old who was 11 when we started this deal, and it's pulling teeth to get her to come to Disney now at 17. Like, it's just no interest whatsoever. So she outgrew it. It's just not in the phase. Now, I would imagine, give me another 12 years till she's 30 and maybe married with kids, and she's going to be all about coming back to Disney again. So,
and I see you as that granddad taking those little fingers of that new little addition to the family down the Magic Kingdom path to get Mickey's autograph. It does come back around. But so many of our sellers say that, too. They're, when they're selling and we're asking them, we talk about how long they've had their membership and why they're selling. So many of them tell me, well, Linda, I got to tell you, the grandkids are grown and we just don't see going back over and over again. And, you have a percentage of people, like I was one of those that used exchanges. I used to use my points to go skiing all the time. But the bulk of the people that are going to use their points, they're coming to Disney with the kids, the grandkids. At some point, like you said, the life clock goes forward and you have to make a decision what's best for you.
Yeah. And that's why we've got a really vibrant, healthy market here.
Yep.
And I would challenge anybody who's looking at this. They publish this report month after month, and they've pretty much done it for the 6 years you guys have been open. Mm-hmm. So you've got 6 years of data out there that you can kind of fish through and start to see this, the slight ebbs and curves of this market, but generally it trends up. And to me, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a member for as long as it makes sense. And when it doesn't make sense anymore, I'm bailing. And at least from the kids' perspective, but from my perspective, I'm one of those lifers. Okay. I don't see this changing. I'm just looking at the rest of my family that, is losing some interest. And I'm going, y'all are crazy. Like, this is still a ton of fun. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but.
Yeah, points are fun. I mean, you remember the old commercials where the kids are sitting at home and they're watching a commercial and mom and dad have gone to Disney without them and they're talking before they see the commercial. Oh, this is, mom and dad are going to be so bored without us there. Oh, and they're out there playing golf. They're eating in the restaurants. They may even go into the park. Mom and dad can have fun.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But I guess I'm going to yell squirrel at myself for this one. And we'll get a little bit back on track here. But as I'm looking at some of these prices here, I'm glad to see Copper Creek went up $6 from the previous month. I did not understand the 140 dip. And as a Copper Creek owner, that kind of, ouch, that hurts to see that big a fall from down to 140. But I'm glad to see we're starting to rebound a little bit from that little overcorrection that happened in August. And then,
you know what I'm wondering, Chad? I'm wondering if that little dip came because of the announcements of the Wilderness Lodge, the cabins, if people seem to think that was going to be something different than what it became. And then when they realized that it's very different than, Copper Creek and Boulder, that's why that came back. Because I see more buyers for copper now than we had. So I wonder if that had something to do with it.
Yeah, could be. And then the other thing that I think is the reality check that's happening here is we start to see Grand Californian coming back into the 250 price range. And I think Villas at Disneyland Hotel is going to start to force that back down into reality. Now, I've stayed at both. I have owned both, and I still own the villas at Disneyland. I would I would prefer Copper Creek and Grand Cal, but I would choose Grand Cal if I could. And at 7 month, I will be taking my Villas at Disneyland Hotel and trying to 7 month switch across the parking lot or across that little Disneyland Way Road or whatever it's called to Grand Cal, because I like the location a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But I got to be honest with you. I think reality setting in, and that's what we're seeing in this. I don't know. I think to me, Grand Cal is still a watcher because there's a lot of great things you can say about it. But is it really worth that much more on resale than Disneyland?
It's interesting. When sellers come to us, say with Grand Cal, with any of our sellers, no matter what the resort, we'll run them through a broker price opinion tool and give them suggestions based on what we have and what that tool says. So we give them the advice, but as transactional brokers, if the seller says, hey, well, Linda, I want to go ahead and put $300 a point on that, we can say, well, it's not our suggestion, but they're the boss of that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it takes them time that they're there to see that if they're not getting a lot of activity, maybe they need to tweak it. But we've got a few that, they love it. They want to hold on to it. And thing about resale members that, for new people, the bulk of our sellers are not in hardship situations. They don't have to sell.
No.
They'll tell you we're not in a hurry. I'm sure you, Chad, if you were reselling something, you're not going to give your membership away.
Nope.
So, you've just, bide your time, but I would watch Grand Cal and see what happens.
Yeah, well, seeing that you mentioned it and we're covering active inventory next, I did just come over to the website and put the filter onto this, and I see some 320s and 300s, 290s, 265s.
Yep.
And those people may be hanging out there for a while to try to get that. But
and when you click and you open up a listing, you want to look at to the far right when it's open. When was it listed? Say that one was listed May 25th. So it's been there a little while, because the average listings with us sell in about 30, 45 days, about an average. So they're holding tighter. Not that that's wrong. We're not going to tell a seller, well, you're wrong. We don't talk to them like that. But time does tell. It's all about supply and demand.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, if that's what their hold firm price is, you'll put it out there and you'll take offers on it. And that make an offer button is
it's right there.
It's doing the pixie dust thing when I hover over it. I'm sure you would present that to them if I were to do something there. But yeah.
And that finance button from Monero is right underneath there.
Yeah.
So you can go see what it's going to be.
You certainly could. But coming back to our open listings, I love screen sharing this stuff because you guys do have the best website out there.
Thank you.
All of DVC. So I like screen sharing this, and
yeah, it's very pretty.
Yeah. So what I love is doing this is we can put our filter on active listings only. That takes away everything that you guys have already accepted a pending sale on. And these are just sellers that are open to offers right now.
Correct.
And you can come back in and sort by use year. Just show me the February ones, which I have. You can come back in and go by resort. You can put filters into this. Yes. And then the really special status that I love that makes me drool all the time is I come back over here and I look and I click subsidized dues. And then I see yet another Alani subsidized dues points matching my use year. And I wish I could buy it. So,
they're little gold nuggets, Chad. I can't tell you. And they're so rare to be out there because they had to have been bought before it was July of 2011. And so there's not very many out there. And a lot of times they're going to go really, really quick. Like you can see, we just, filtering for particular use year, there's one February.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know. You're not helping me here, Linda. Okay. Let's click this off. Let's come back in right before.
You get that credit card out too fast.
Yeah. We're not going to do that. But anyways, right now we're seeing 455 active listings, which is probably up around 30, 40 listings from when we did this show last month.
Well, you have to understand that it doesn't take into consideration, what's sold between that, because we list more than about 40 a month. But the interesting thing is we're going to see, at this time of year, sellers, when they call too, they're thinking about stepping away from the dues. So that's another reason, because they will not have to pay the 2024 dues on 2024 points going with the listing. So they start thinking about that. So you'll see those listings actually come up a little bit in time. But,
when those due statements come out in December.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is
when they ratify.
Right? And those of us who bought Disneyland Tower just this week, we got our first due statement from that, which could be prompting some people, if they bought Disneyland Tower, could be prompting them to come back in and do a couple listings saying, hey, maybe I don't need so many points. Maybe it's time to amputate a Walt Disney World one because I've now got points in the land. And
yes, exactly. Because before we're going to see any Disneyland Tower on resale, it's going to be, I would guess, a little while, unless somebody has a hardship situation, unfortunately, and they've got to liquidate a contract. You just don't normally see them pop up here right when they're being sold. Initially, I'd say the 6 to 8 month period is about average for that.
I'm going to go back to our resale prices here. Because we've got a question for you that came in off of YouTube, Linda. We do live stream this live. And so Jay Ware says, what's Linda's opinion on Poly Tower? Does she think it's going to be a new association, and will it hurt the resale of Poly Tower? So
my gosh.
I pulled up the resale history right here.
Yep.
Now, it took a little bit of a dive as well, from the 170s down to 155, but it's not 141 of Bay Lake. And if we compare it to Grand Flow, it's still about the same dip that Grand Flow had.
Yeah.
And Grand Flow's been active sales.
Right. I kind of have an opinion on that. And thank you so much for asking the question. That's a great question. We hear that quite a bit, is that, if the Poly Tower becomes an expansion, great. Everybody's happy. Current members are happy. Members that bought direct at Polynesian originally are going to be quite happy. But think about those members that might be disappointed. That's my concern, is if they don't make an expansion. Even the direct members from Disney are now, they don't have that home resort priority at that new tower. Do I think that it's going to hurt the resale of Poly? No, I don't. I really don't think it's going to hurt, because you still have a very high valued monorail resort. You have the largest studios ever built in any Disney Vacation Club at the current Polynesian. So I think that's still going to hold on and drive business because price is going to be so different from direct. Eventually, then it's going to be a resale. I don't think resale will lose value. I mean, you can kind of say the same thing about Grand Floridian, because Grand Floridian, the big promotions ended, I think it was around the 12th of September.
Mhm.
They stopped, they changed, they went down. Now Grand's coming back up. So that's kind of a good barometer, but that's an excellent question. My personal hope, and I think it's Chad too, is that it becomes an expansion, because then everyone
I want
is
it to be an
happy.
expansion.
Everyone's
I bought 100
happy.
points direct at Poly. It'd be nice to be able to have home advantage there. It'd just be nice
One
from
bedroom.
to get
Mhm.
to a one bedroom if I wanted to with
And
those
two.
points.
Yes.
Yes. It would be
Yes.
nice to balance out some of those ungodly expensive bungalows that sit empty. Like later down the road, they could build this knowing they're going to shift their points around and drop the bungalows down and raise these up a little.
Yes.
They've got that ability if it's all in the same association. If
Yeah.
it's not in the same association, we're stuck with the bungalow problem as original Poly owners.
Yep. And, I think the feeling of the tower when you just, obviously nobody's walked inside yet, but with the feeling of the Polynesian tower, I don't think it has the much as warmth and fuzzy as the existing Polynesian. So if they do make it completely separate, I think you're really going to feel it then. But if they make it an expansion, it's just kind of an overflow. If I want my feeling, I'll go back into that other building. But I've got all of these 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms now I can book. So boy, I'll tell you what, I'd be a very rich woman if I had that crystal ball and I could tell you exactly what it's going to be. I'd have them lined upside the door.
Yeah, well, if you have that crystal ball, I'm going Powerball. I'm not messing around with Poly Tower here, Linda. I'm just saying, okay? Like,
You know how
I'm
to
going to
get
do
me.
one ball read and be set for life. Right? Let's just get it over with, and then I'll tip you well. We'll pay you for your
Yeah.
powers, and
Just
and
give me a
move
little
on.
leftovers.
And then I can, pretty much live at a Disney resort if I want to. Okay, we had another interesting question come in from Facebook, and our buddy Rye is saying the 2025 annual dues are coming in soon. I think he meant 2024.
Yes,
I
it's
foresee a
24.
bump in the inventory driving prices down more, and that's a traditional thing that we see. But there's something else to that, right, Linda? Because shortly after the dues come out, another magical thing happens.
Well, yeah. I mean, after the dues come out, then, there are other things that do happen. But I have not seen, just in all my years with Disney directly and here as well, is that when those annual dues come out, we've all got to wait and see what that percentage is. Because we had a pretty high percentage, what was it, last year, the year before? And we still sold, in the last 2 years here, were sellers markets. So it really didn't, kill it too much at all for any period of time. So I think it's a great question that we ask, but I'm just, we're all waiting with bated breath on that. Is what are those dues going to be? It's going to be about the first week of December before they ratify and they publish that. We might find out, our little moles tell us a little bit sometimes before December 1, but actually for them to be published, we got to wait and see what they're going to be and how much. And it's going to be based on each resort, because each resort has its own operating costs. So where were the changes? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, usually like right before Thanksgiving, we start to see some numbers leaked, and the numbers surprisingly don't change when they get finalized by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that I'm referring to is, yes, the due statements come out in December. That gives people a couple of weeks to make the decision, keep or sell. Those that are selling usually end up hitting by about January. But then you've got the cabin fever kicking in. You've got people planning their summer vacations picking in,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the busiest sales time of the year for DVC resale. And it's vacation planning season. So that tends to like balance all of that out a little bit.
It does. It's agreed. It's, it slows down a little bit, around the holidays. It has to. That's normal. It slows down at Disney. It slows down here. Disney will start to ramp up some things that they think are effective. We just are very smart about the listings. We really spend a lot of time with the sellers, making sure they understand what the market is. But when we are hitting the end of the winter and we're going into the spring, it is busier than 1M paper hangers here.
Yeah.
Because of what you said. You've got to plan ahead. Everybody knows that buys Disney, that's a member. You cannot, at the last minute, always get the inventory that you want. You got to plan ahead. So that's the time that they're doing it.
And then another follow-up question here is, do you think a much needed refurb at Bay Lake Tower would help the resale prices there? I'll let you take first stab at that.
Well, I hate to be general, but I think any resort that gets a refresh, a facelift, is a huge plus when those members check in there. And it gets all over Facebook, right? Think about how powerful people put out their little
What
reviews.
happened at Boulder Ridge this year, right?
Oh my gosh, that's a great example, Chad. It was a huge bump. And then all of a sudden we got people, oh, well, that's been refreshed. And even though it's an older resort, it's been refreshed. And now we want to go there and, oh, how beautiful that is. And, oh, maybe I want to buy that. So, yeah, I do agree that can have a positive impact on any resort that right,
happens. Those 32-inch LCD screens have got to go. Okay. Those puppies are 20 years old. And I think they were outdated when they put them in there. Right. But you look at those TVs in Bay Lake and you're like, people actually used to watch this. Like, this is not my 85-inch OLED. Like, okay, I'm spoiled. I'll admit it. Yeah. But I can't handle a 32-inch TV. Right.
Oh, I totally agree. And you know what? We've talked before, and this is just something, a little Disney history. I mean, when you look at the Contemporary Hotel and you look at Bay Lake Tower, those are the only hotels and the only DVCs that were set in the future when they launched. It's impossible to stay in pace with the future unless you update it. The past, every other Disney resort in DVC is set in the past. You can always keep the past current, but you can't keep the future current unless you update it, right? So the question is, that's going to be a great idea. And I think it will have a positive effect.
I do as well. And I'm with you on Facebook, waiting for the Grand Cal refurb. Yes. Let's shed some of those dark colors there and some of the big bulky furniture, please. Please. Yes, I'm all about that. I would love to see that happen. Linda, we keep getting some really good squirrel questions here, but let's come back in because we've got one more thing to talk about here.
Okay.
And I drilled into an Animal Kingdom contract here. So if you were to come into a listings, here's our make an offer with the magical pixie dust. Man, I got to give your web developer some shout outs for that. That's just really cool when you hover over it that you get a little pixie dust thing going on there.
It's all about the wand.
Yeah, I'm telling you, right?
It's all about that. You got to have that. It's interesting because this is kind of a slower pace time of year. There's some awfully nice things that our company have done to kind of give people some fun alternatives for buying, when these prices are low as well, to tack on to what else could I do? Mm-hmm. And so you might be curious, what if I run across this listing, as you pulled up, Chad, that says starting with magic? What does that really mean? Well, one key point you always want to do, my friends, is when you look at a listing, you want to click it open and look all the way to the bottom because there it is. So there's 3 different things. Now, mind you, I do want to put this in that this is only available for these and through October 31st. Come November, you won't see this anymore. Those are gone. So what can I do with my points? Well, you could take your points and you could either keep them, use them for vacations, bank them like you normally did, the normal thing to do. Or if you wanted to, and this would be a buyer that's really, really thinking finances. Maybe I could skip a year of vacation. I just want to get in. I want to be a member of DVC and get my foot in there. So you could sell back your points to a certain level. You've got to do at least 160. You could trade those back in. Now, our wonderful other company we own, the DVC Rental Store, does the processing. And you've got to make your decision on these, Chad, within 60 days of closing. You can't wait 6 months and reach back and say, I want to turn those points in. It doesn't work like that. So just be sensitive. You can get cash for those points. And then down at the bottom.
And then here it's pointing out, you can get 1920 cash.
Yes.
Which you could use to instantly pay down on the loan. You could do whatever you wanted to with the money. And,
you could do that.
You might even be able to give them to them at closing or have them work it in so it doesn't even hit your loan. I don't know about that. You'll have to talk with our friends Amy over at and see if they can work some magic with the title company there.
Yeah.
I no promises there, but it wouldn't
we
hurt.
make it easy. We make it easy for you. They can clear all of that and what's actually done with it. And then the last thing that you see down there is that operant golden word called park passes, which is interesting because if you read through that, you can see that you can actually turn in points for park passes on there too. And it gives you a certain number of tickets that you can get. And on the 160 points, you could provide a quantity of 10 standard Disney World theme park tickets, one-day tickets, which worth up to $1,959. But then if you want more and you've got more points, then it's 16 points for Park Pass. When you think about it, you can get more Park Passes. So what I think about all this is it makes it fun. It gives buyers opportunities. We all like choices. We don't want, we like, the points are really fun anyway, but we like to have choices in our life. And at this time of year, this is really, we've sold quite a few listings and these buyers are using these options. So either keep the points, trade them in. And if you want to find out more about it, just reach out to us. But you just make sure you read the bottom of the listing. It's really, really got a good breakdown of that for you.
Yeah. This is all the fine print that I know of. It's right here.
That's it.
Right. It's right here in front of you. And essentially what you're doing is you're buying a contract and you're renting out a first year of points, which is, it's starting with magic, but I did that right when I bought my Bay Lake, like 2017. I think I stripped them out and used it to pay off the contract. So it's not a new concept, but I think you guys have some fun marketing on this that talks about, hey, we can give you cash, we can give you park tickets. Yes. And if you talk to our friends over at DVC Rental Store, they got a variety of options that they can do for you. They could put you on another cruise. They could, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but it is a great thing in here to come back in and just spark the conversation, so to speak, and let people know they've got some choices, not just this year, but you could rent your points out down the line as well and work with them on that for those options as well.
Yeah. And there's certain use years. That's why not every single listing is going to have that, because it's your use years that are going to be workable. Like I believe it's September, October, and December use year. And August, I think, is in there. There's 3 or 4 use years that qualify for this just because of the closing process and needing to make decisions on those points within a reasonable amount of time so it doesn't run into trouble and lose anything. And then there's that other option that's in there. You'll see another little red tag that says, I believe that it's fully loaded with 2023 points. Not every listing is. Those are really, really good ones. Maybe it's a different use year. Like maybe it's a June use year that's out there somewhere, and you can find something that says, and I think when you pull that up, you'll see on some of those little red tags, the status over to the right. You'll find that out in that window. There's another one that you can do that just tells you got 2023 points sitting there.
Yeah, double points. There's double points, nearly double points, and triple
points there. And then there's some for that are full for 23. So if you take that stat, there you go. So if you go down to the far right of a listing, when you are able to get back there, you'll see a little red box, like the one red box that's starting with magic. There's going to be another red box that's on there that's going to say something else, that's going to reference for you another tag. It's going to say bonus full points for 2023 with no dues. Remember, you've got a situation where, oh, wait a minute, I don't pay the dues on maybe 150 or 100 points from 2023. Guys, those are freebies. What those points are worth to you in a vacation, we'll go over and stay in a studio in Jumbo House for a week at like 9 or 10 points per night. There's some big value there.
Yeah, well, totally this is a 400-point contract. So if you're getting double points in 23, those are going to be, it's a June use year. So you've got until May to use those.
You do. Yes,
you got plenty of opportunities to close on that and start busting out those points.
Yes, you do.
In worst case scenario, you book a poly bungalow and you invite me to come over for dinner. I'm just saying, I'll be there, Linda. Right.
And June 23 points are bankable too, Chad. So, what I probably would do, because,
400 of those are going to be bankable. You've got 400 you've got to use by May. That's a good point. Yep. And then you could have a massive party in 2024.
Go check out DVC Rental Store's cruise swap points, guys. They're about 40% less than direct. I'm going to plant that seed. That's an option with a package that size.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's all kinds of crazy things you can do with this. So, again, my deal is to come back in, recap what's happening here, and start to spark some things. And then afterwards, I always end it with this little golden nugget here that I love doing is, Linda, how can people follow up with you after the show?
Oh, thank you. I love to talk to people. You can reach me by email if you want at linda@dvcresalemarket.com. My direct line is 352-223-9600 for questions, advice, certainly for listings, and I will tell the sellers, we certainly would love to talk to more sellers these days too, particularly Grand Floridian. So please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help you with guidance.
Well, thanks so much for joining, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today, Linda.
Thank
As
you.
always, hopefully you learned something in today's show that'll help you go out there and plan something magical for your family, because we always want to come back in, talk about options, talk about pros, cons, all of this stuff so that you can make an educated decision about what's best for your family.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch your head and step as you exit, and take small children by the hand.
Aw, chill up, Dad. You know I'll come back. With DVC.
My DVC Points is an unofficial Disney-inspired podcast created by fans of Disney Vacation Club. The thoughts expressed in this podcast are personal opinions and personal experiences. My DVC Points is not affiliated with Disney Vacation Club, the Walt Disney Companies, or any subsidiaries. We encourage listeners to contact their DVC guide or member services for official DVC policies.